What's up, guys? Welcome to another Hearthstone guide. In this guide, we're going to be covering the Priest. And as always, to help me is going to be Aki and Canny. Guys, what's going on?
How's it going?
Nash?
Going pretty good. Just got done watching a little AFC Championship action, so figured we'd come hang out with you guys, except for Aki, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Hang out with you guys and do some guides. And as always, I'm going to be covering the Legendary and the Hero Power, and then we'll get into some strengths and weaknesses, as well as maybe some common decks or interesting ideas when building your own Priest deck. So the Legendary card for the Priest is Prophet Valen. Doubles the damage and healing of your spells and Hero Power. It's a 7/7 minion as well. This card I've seen used in a lot of Priest decks. Seems to be very, very good. Especially in like Spell Priest decks, stuff like that. But we'll get into that in a little bit. The Hero Power for Priest is heals. It will heal you for 2, and you can heal any minion on the board for 2, so it's your choice of what you want to heal. But you also can actually turn that into a 2 damage spell to anything on the board with certain cards and characters. So we'll get into that a little bit more once we get into that, but those are the 2 main things that are going into Priest. I'm going to start with strengths. So Aki, let's cover some strengths of the Priest, or some things that you find that they're very good at.
Sure. Strengths definitely have to be buffing minions with health, such as through the likes of Divine Spirit, where you double a minion's HP. So it can make it very... When you combine that with certain cards, like say, for example, the... Oh, what's his name? That Tazdingo? Who's got 3/5, you chuck down the Spirit on him, and he goes up to a 3/10, which just makes it really annoying to sort of try and play against, you know?
And a 3/10 on turn 5 is not your best friend.
Yeah. No, exactly.
It's a lot of help to chew through.
Exactly. And then you get the threatening thing as well with the Priest with the Inner Fire. So say if they do that, the Inner Fire then changes a minion's attack to be equal to its health. So you could be looking at a 10/10 on turn 6, and you're thinking, oh. So, I mean, I've seen some pretty crazy numbers of this. You can get up as high as, like 30, 40. If you want to throw in Lord Walker Cho and both of you start doing it, it gets pretty out of control. So. Things as well, like Power Word Shield, is arguably one of the best draw cards in the game. You give a minion 2 health and you draw a card for 1 mana. Yeah. It's very strong. So I think that's probably one of their main strengths. And funny note, Priests are actually the only class that can alter their hero power. With a thing such as Shadow Form, the spell, or if they use the minion Alchemy Soul Priest, it then makes it so that like the Alchemy Soul Priest makes it so that your healing now does damage and your damage now does healing. So it kind of alters them a bit, which is pretty fun. Other than that, they've got probably the one reason I love playing the Priest is their randomness. So you can Thought Steal, where you copy 2 cards from your opponent's deck. So you can do, like I played against Canny the other day, and I had like Priest with, what did I have? Lightning Storm.
Oh boy,
lightning bolts,
bolt.
other stuff. Yeah, it's kind of funny because you can pull out whatever you want, like some random things. They got this awesome card called Mind Games, which puts in a copy of a random minion from your opponent's deck straight onto the battlefield. So you could Mind Games out a Deathwing, Ragnar, or something like that for 4 mana. So it's pretty crazy. That's what I love about the Priest, the randomness to it. It just changes everything up. So.
Well, and that's the thing, is it's one of those decks that I think, as we were discussing before the video started on kind of what their strengths and weaknesses, I think that actually plays into kind of segueing into their weaknesses. Because of the RNG factor. And Canny, let's get into that a little bit. As we talked about things like obviously the randomness of the cards, and because of cards like Mind Vision and like Mind Games and things like that, your decks, it has a lot of fun, it's a lot of flavor, but in the competitive end of the game, it doesn't seem to be very popular. Is that probably the reason why? Is just because of all the RNG, or just lack of knowing what your deck's going to hold?
I mean, that could absolutely be it. And like they say, situational cards are generally not included, where you want the cards that are reliable in almost every situation. Right. And when you play something as completely random as a Mind Games or a Thought Steal, etc., like it can just throw your whole game for a loop. It could potentially be a wasted turn if you turn around and you thought steal cards that you don't really have a good use for, and
Right.
it can also swing the game. So while I'm not a huge fan of that and I find that a drawback, some people find that fun, and that's probably the reason why you don't see a lot of priests in the current metagame, at least. And and it kind of, other than having the strong removal with Shadow Word Pain and Shadow Word Death, another one of the biggest drawbacks of priests is that they rely heavily on neutral minions to do anything regarding minions in the early game. Other than the Northshire Cleric, they don't really have much that they can play in the early game aside from turn 4, 5, and 6 plays, for minions. So they're really heavily dependent on, low-cost neutral minions, your Novice Engineers, your Elven Archers, things like that. Your Argent Squires are great in the priest decks, but that's probably their biggest drawback, is that if you don't have that pool of neutral cards to be able to combo with it, you're kind of up the creek, so to speak.
Absolutely. And kind of while we're covering that, like the different decks that I've seen, as Kenny and Aki and I have alluded to already, it doesn't seem to be that in the competitive endgame, when you're trying to move up in ranks, that you'll really fight many priests. I haven't come across, I think, one or two. Even when they did this season reset, I think I've maybe come across one or two at the higher end levels, and that was it. And the main reason is you can build a really good priest deck, but again, it's not consistent, and I think that's their biggest problem going forward. And like Canny said, with the absence of neutral minions, their spells are extremely strong. I mean, Mind Blast is overpowered for 2 damage, or for 2 mana, like stupidly overpowered. Shadow Word Pain, Shadow Word Death, you have 2 of these cards that are absolutely disgusting. Lightwell, again, an absolutely disgusting card, but the problem with it is a lot of RNG. There's not a lot of neutral minions. There's just a lot that you're dependent on from the neutral deck that you need in order to really build a good priest deck, and I think that's part of the problem. But Aki, is there anything else that you want to cover with priests, or anything else that you've seen? I know like mind control's been nerfed a little bit.
They got changed a bit from... It just had its cost increased a bit from 8 to 10. It still makes the card really good for what it is. It just makes it so that, if you play, like your opponent plays Legendary on turn 8 or 9, then at least they get to play with it for, a turn or two.
Right. And I think that's I think that was the reason they changed it, is just because round 8 a rag, you could turn around and round 8 mind control right back.
Yeah.
And that swung a game so hard that it wasn't. I mean, it was GG at that point.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a very strong card, so it deserved the mana increase, especially when you take into consideration some of the other control cards that you mentioned earlier, like Shadow Word Death destroying anything with more than 5 attack, or Shadow Word Pain, taking out anything with 3 or less. So, but other than that, like you're saying, you don't really see too many priests out there. There's probably not too many decks around, like actually good constructed ones. I think if you just sort of stick to...
Yeah, I was looking through it before we did the video, and I mean...
Didn't see any?
There wasn't very many. Not compared to every other class, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. So, I mean, I think it's just probably, if you build it with a good base and then just sort of throw in what you like if you like the random aspect of the priest like I do, then, put in those things like Thought Steal, Mind Vision, and stuff like that. And another cool little fact, if you have a golden Mind Vision or golden Thought Steal, the cards that you get actually come back as golden. So, I know I did that against you once. I got your...
Golden Onyxia.
What was the name? Onyxia, yeah. And I got the golden Onyxia version of it, and that was really cool, so...
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't think there's too much else to do.
I will throw in really quickly that I have been killed by a 30-30 Lightwell. Yeah, that's happened.
I think that's I mean, I've been killed by a 30-30 light spawn before.
Yeah.
So, that's definitely a possibility.
If you guys like to build just trolly one-shot decks, Priest is by far the funnest way to go. I will tell you that. If you enjoy, like if you're playing with your friends and you just want to take a huge gamble and play just a troll face deck, go ahead and build just a complete, grab all the fun cards and just go have fun with it.
Yeah,
because you can really if you can get a lead. I mean, you can really punish people with a priest. It's just, like I said, it's the RNG of it that you might not see it so much in meta. But, Kenny, anything else before we take off?
I mean, other than the Akanai Soul Priest that Aki had mentioned, the Shadow Form is actually a card that's in the Priest deck that changes your hero power to deal 2 damage upon first playing Shadow Form. If you play a second Shadow Form card, it actually increases your hero power to dealing 3 damage. Now, that is for the rest of the game. You can't go back to having a healing hero power. There's no way to reverse that. But that can also, for a total of 6 mana, over the course of a turn or 2 turns, that could really, turn around and swing a game.
When you can pick where 3 damage is going at any time, that's quite a over. But again, like you said, the RNG of you getting that.
I mean, you have to draw 2 out of 30 cards to be able to control 3 damage.
Right.
It's not exactly exciting, I guess.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, guys. But I don't want to make it sound like we're really dissing the priest, because there is a lot of fun that you can have. We just wanted to reiterate the fact that, again, in the ranked game, in the meta game, in the end game of where a lot of the players are being really competitive, this class is not really up to snuff at the current moment, for probably some of the reasons that we discussed. If you're looking to have a lot of fun with the class, though, this is definitely a fun class to go ahead and give a try, especially as you start to get some of these cards, like Mind Games, Prophet Velen, Holy Fire. There's just a lot of fun things that you can do with these cards, so make sure that you do give it a try. And as always, we will see you guys in the next one.